Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Toy Addict 26 here, back again with a very exciting conversation today. We have our friend Brian Flynn from Super 7 back again to talk about Silverhawks and Ultimates in general. So, without further ado, let's welcome him in. What's going on, Brian? How you doing?
Hello. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Really excited to sit down and talk to you. I know a lot of people have been talking about Silverhawks. It's something that's finally taking fruition. We saw some
Yep.
teases earlier in the year. Basically, you mentioned that you had the license to produce toys, but there was no actual product shown until last week. And
Correct.
I got to say, the product looks amazing. Um, I know that right out the gate, there's always going to be people complaining about certain things, and the main focus right now I see among collectors is where's the shine, where's the metallic, and
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because all of a sudden everybody's an expert on back metal. I saw somebody go to the extent of posting an example of Jada Toys, I believe. They were doing some LOLs, and it's like a car, kind of like a hot rod car that comes with a doll. And they're like, this is back metal. I'm like, yeah, but it's a car. It's not an articulated action figure.
Well, with vac metal, it's not about uh, what you can and can't vac metal. It's about what materials you can vac metal. So you can vac metal ABS, but you cannot vac metal PVC. There are limited situations where you can actually get PVC to work, but for the ease of conversation, you can vac metal ABS. You cannot vac metal PVC. So ABS, is generally what the torsos on all your action figures are made of, and PVC is what everything else is made of. ABS has no give; it is completely rigid. Where the whole point of using PVC is that it has a little bit of flexibility inherent in it. So that's what allows all the joints and everything in all these modern action figures to work because they're all friction fit. And so they're actually, more or less the same size. And the only reason they work is because that material has a slight bit of flexibility to it to allow it to bend to move over the other portion. There's actually a couple other things involved with that, but I mean that's the oversimplification of it. So if you think about even like on the most simple answers, like when you're popping on hands, and it's got the male end with the little ridge on it that pops in. That ridge has to bend and twist to fit inside the cavity on the other side. It's got some push and pull. With ABS, you can't do that. So a really good classic example would be removable limbs C3PO. If you ever had that toy,
Yeah.
the arms and the legs are ABS as opposed to PVC. So on Darth Vader or Han Solo or Zuckuss or whatever you want, you can bend the plastic on the arms a little bit. Those things are stiff and rough. And then therefore they can't really make the joints the same way. So that's why you see them doing those straight pegs. That the first day you have that figure, it's really snug. Second week in though, it's like, super floppy. But that's sort of the first part of it. You could theoretically make the whole figure out of ABS, but then you wouldn't be able to do the same articulation plan that is in current action figures. Um, the way all those figures are assembled, where parts pop on top of each other and spin and move, like you wouldn't be able to do that. Like they would have to just be slide-ons there, or two parts, which is normally what happens with the chest, where it's two parts that come together and get glued, and that's what holds it together. So you could go to the length of making every arm and forearm and bicep two parts that snap over the joint in there, but it would radically change the whole way you make action figures. But that's the thing about vac metal. I think really what we're talking about though is that there's a difference between what you remember about the Silverhawks. And the real truth of the matter is most people don't have a very deep history personally with the TV show. Their
You there?
history. Oh yeah, did it drop?
Yeah, I lost you. Did
Okay.
you lose me on your end?
I lost you for a second. I just didn't know if you were making the screen bigger or smaller. Uh,
No, I think we dropped connection for a brief moment.
where
Okay.
where was I at in my soliloquy?
You you were giving the example of C3PO and having slight bend.
Yeah, and so like if you went there and then if you went into making a modern day action figure in ABS, you would either have to go to a point where just the joints slid on top of each other and they didn't hold each other, or you'd have to make it a left and a right that could glue together. So it'd be like, here's your shoulder, here's your bicep, left and right, that glues together, that covers this joint and this joint. And then this one does this joint. And you wouldn't be able to have some of the other joints. So that's not really feasible. But I think the real thing is not so much vac metal. I mean, the real struggle, that we knew we would run into is that what people remember is the toys. They don't necessarily remember the animation the same way. It wasn't on for a very long time. It's been difficult to get a hold of since then. Like even now, you can't go to YouTube and watch it because it's behind a paywall. So watching Silverhawks is not the same thing as the Silverhawks toys. Now, the Silverhawks toys were amazing toys, but they're not really representative of what happened on the TV show. They like took that up and dialed it way up. I mean, Buzzsaw is green, and then they're all vac metal plated, and they're not that shiny on the show, but it's the emotional connection when I say Silverhawks, and the thing that pops into people's brains is
the toys.
That vac metal toy. And because I didn't give you that vac metal toy, there's a problem. But secondarily,
but I think the real argument is actually what I've been hearing is people are putting up the examples of, for example, I think it was the Flying Fists He-Man from Mattel. He had the kind of shiny sheen on the chest plate that wasn't vac metal, but it had that metallic look because of the paint deco or whatever materials they used to paint it. So the argument is just make them shimmer, make them blink.
Oh, and that's the hard part, because that's
necessarily
what we have.
The vac metaling.
The hard part is that what we have right now is sort of a pearlized metallic. Did that work? You jumped. I don't know if you heard me or not.
Yeah.
So what we have, the paint that we're using right now is a metallic paint that's got a pearlized coat on it to knock it back matte a little bit more, so that it families with, in some cases, like painted arms. But in more like, if you look at the entire Thundercats line that we've made, and then going into Silverhawks and going into Buzzsaw and Monstar and everybody, is that more animated look, which is a little less glossy and a little more knocked back. So we've got a metallic on there that's got a pearl finish to it, so that it's not as blingy and bright, but it still has that metallic sheen. And I think that because it doesn't have that overt sort of like big metallic move, that's the part that's getting hung up on. And in talking to some people, they're like, well, it looks like it's flat gray, or it looks like it's flat blue. And it's like, okay, well, it's not flat gray and it's not flat blue, but until I get a final paint sample, I can't really hold it in front of somebody and go, okay, see, this is what the paint does. And we're still a little ways around that. But it was, I think for us, I was really trying to make this look more like the animation, where you've got, if we're talking about like most of the Silverhawks, they're about a 40% gray with a hint of blue. And if you talk about Quicksilver, he is sort of 20% gray with a good bit of blue in his, to sort of indicate the silver. It's not a black that turns green or a black that turns red. It's a black that turns blue, but obviously in gray and silver. And so what I'm hoping we can get to do, but I don't know if we're going to be able to, so I don't want to promise this, is the one paint that we're really trying to get to is like an automotive paint where the color shifts. So like a lot of times you'll see cars that look black to purple or red to blue. I'm trying to get one that goes from like a light blue to a silver, and sort of a darker blue to a gunmetal. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get that, but at the very least, it will still have that sort of metallic in between color with like a pearlized finish, so that families with them instead of just jumping off the screen, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome because you're going after that cartoon look, which at the end of the day, that's really what it's based on. I mean, the toys are usually sometimes in the '80s, the toy companies took certain liberties where the toys never really were a clear depiction of what was seen on TV. So, and we saw that with Masters, we saw that with Star Wars, pretty much across the line. Nothing was ever 100% accurate to what was.
Still there? Oh. Wait for you to come back. There you are.
Is awesome. You missed me?
Yeah,
Were you hearing me,
out.
or is just...
No, the whole thing dropped out. About you were saying nothing in the '80s really looked like it was on screen.
Yeah. So basically, nothing in the '80s as far as toys looked like it was in the cartoons, and I think it's probably because the way toys were being produced back then, the materials, just the whole way of creating toys was very limited. We obviously couldn't get the type of details and sculpts that we get today because of technology or whatnot. But I think with Silverhawks, they look fantastic. What you've shown so far looks amazing. What I did want to ask you was, it's the first time really that you're showing an Ultimates product and going on pre-order, but not physically doing one of your little glam videos where you're actually showing the toys in hand and showing scale and that kind of stuff. So is it safe to say that, are you like trying to get ahead of the game with pre-orders this time around where you're still a little behind on production and that's why you haven't shown the figures?
No, it's actually more that we've got them, and I tried doing some cell phone video stuff with it, but then I start talking about vac metal or whatever, and now next thing you know, it's a 10-minute take with me messing up. We don't have the staff back in the office. I don't have the video guys really back in the office. So it's been trickier to do all that. I've got them at the office. They're not the final paints by any stretch. I mean, they're not even final sizes in some cases. Like because we send then a set to the factory, the Monstar that I have at the office is only 10 inches tall, where the final one's actually 11 inches tall. We sent the 11-inch one tall off. So the only reason I haven't done a little, as you said, song and dance video with them is just that nobody else is there to do it with me. And it'd be like me setting up my cell phone in the corner and going, "Oh, okay, hey guys." And it just, I did a few of them and they just didn't turn out very good. So I haven't done one yet, but as we move forward,
so they didn't come out the way you usually like to do these videos.
I mean, it was low rent even for that. I think as we get a little further into the process and we hopefully get some paint samples, I'll be able to show people, some stuff where it's like, okay, hey, look, take a look at this paint, take a look at this. I can pick up some figures and hold them and show people what they look like.
Yeah, because I think right now everybody's kind of like, hey, these are digital renders. They're not really giving us a clear feel and look of what we're pre-ordering versus the previous Ultimates pre-orders where there's been more of a concrete, hey, this is kind of what the final product is going to look like, on his table desk or whatever. So
the hardest part there is that just obviously, the things that we're photographing in those cases, when it's physical, it's like it's a 3D output that's been hand sanded and hand painted. They never, they look good, but they don't look as good as they can. And then everybody's like, oh man, these look like shit. And it's like, well, because it's 3D printed, it doesn't articulate, it's static, because you have to glue all the parts together.
Right.
And then the renders are coming straight off the sculpts. So they're more accurate to all the fit, all the proportion, everything. plus, it just seems like people like the renders better than the physical photography at point. Once we get the actuals in hand, it's a whole different beast. But when it's still prototypes and stuff, it's it's always a little tricky because you're taking something like I said, if it's a 3D output, now I've sanded it, I've glued it together, I've had to spray it with primer and make an undercoat, then come on top of it and hand paint it, and they're always a little grainy, and they're not up to the level that people expect all of a sudden,
Right. And that's the stuff we're kind of used to seeing, like when you would do like displays at Comic-Con and things like that. Those are the types of prototypes that they're very fragile. They're just put together with glue and stuff like that, sticky tack.
Blue tack and super glue. And then you were re-gluing the ankle every morning. So I mean, if I was at the office, which I'm, clearly I'm in a hallway right here. I could hold up a few of them, and maybe during the next week I'll try to get over to the office and take pictures actually holding some of them so people can go, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. But then everybody's going to go, but that paint's wrong. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't the paint. This is literally flat bluish gray. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it can be kind of annoying because you have, there's so many people that you want to like please, but at the same time, you can't do it all. And so, putting a disclosure, please note these are not final paints or whatever. But it's like, it's annoying. I get it because
it's also a can of worms.
It's not something that's final.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think as soon as I can show people, it's like, we clearly all know that they're supposed to be metallic. The difference is how are we trying to replicate the metallic that they look like on screen with versus how you want to replicate the metallic that was on toys. Those are worlds apart. Like, you can't really get much more chrome than what those toys were. Like, that's like, it's been turned up to 12, which is why they were great toys. That's the hard part about it too. It's like, they're really great toys, but they're fairly divorced from the actuality of the show in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And another thing, and it's funny that not a lot of people mention it, but okay, the toys were very metallic. They were vac metal, but they had like 5 POA, man. Like, so, you had the arms that popped up when you pressed the legs in, and you rotated the heads, and that was kind of it. So you can't expect vac metal on a 30 point of articulation body. You know what I mean? And I remember particularly with my Siverhawks, that the vac metal was scratching and chipping off very easily with gameplay.
Yeah, it's a fragile surface. It just, it's the same thing. Like, it's an iconic toy, and it's more famous, if anything, really, for being a toy than for being a cartoon. And the fact that we're starting with cartoon-centric look and feel is part of the reason that a lot of people are going to be like, well, but I want the toy. I don't want the cartoon. I want the toy, which I understand. And for us, we really looked at it as most of the people buying Siverhawks are going to be the people that have been buying Thundercats from us. Because it's kind of like, here's how many people collect Thundercats. Here's how many people collect Siverhawks. And then you can get to Tiger Shark. It's the same sort of world, but getting smaller and smaller every time. And so if I'm like, okay, here's the whole line of Thundercats that I'm making, and this is the style and execution that I'm doing of these. Siverhawks needs to fit in with this so that they're all one big family. Now, I was having a conversation earlier with somebody else, and they were sort of pushing on, that's all fine and great. I understand it. I appreciate it. But I want my toy colors too. I want a green buzzsaw. I want that heavy silver version. And I do think that's, I know that that's something we're going to get to. Not right away. Obviously, Wave 1 is right now. I was reviewing sculpts on Friday of Wave 2. So Wave 2 is already well into process. And then, Wave 3 would theoretically come out once Wave 1 lands. So
Awesome.
once we've landed wave one and people have the Silverhawks and they're happy with the Silverhawks, then I can come back and say, okay, if you are the kind of collector that also likes paint variants and wants those, I can make those available. But I'm not going to go down the road to making that until we deliver the real line.
Right. Yeah. And it's tricky because, like with Toxie, you did variants, but you've only made Toxie versus this is a full-fledged toy line. You can't sit there and just throw out variants because.
Well, Toxie is a really good example because the first Toxie we made like 2.5 years ago, and tons of people missed it. And so afterwards, we did the glow in the dark one, and then that one went away. And I was still constantly getting hit up with people of like, I want Toxie. I never got Toxie. I really want Toxie. Can you make? And it's like, I don't want to make my stuff hard to get. And while it's nice if the secondary market moves on it, it's more my thing to make it so you can collect the toys, which is why we remade the Turtles, earlier, like 2 months ago. It was like, hey, if you want to collect Turtles from us, but you can't get Leonardo and Donatello, you're not going to collect the Turtles. So let's make the Turtles available again. It's like, it's not my job to make it hard for you. I want you to have fun buying your toys. So same thing, like, how do we come back and make it so people could get Toxie, but not make it the same thing that's already been made? Like, how do we find that point of difference? And that's why with the UV color change ink and everything on it, so when you take it outside, it turns that gross greenish brown and everything. It was like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
When it's not outside on your shelf, it's still, that guy's got his Toxie, but it's still different from the original Toxie. So the guy that has his original Toxie still has his original one, and then the guy that's got it now can have that one. So in as much, though, we are going to be making a couple other Toxie characters in the future, just not yet. But yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to go out there and make it hard or anguish or hand-wringing for people. I'm trying to make a bunch of fun toys, give everybody enough time to order them that wants them. And if you don't want them, that's okay. And then we'll move on to the next one. And hopefully with Silverhawks, like I said, we're already well into wave 2. So, we're going to come out with the first wave. We're going to come out with the second wave. Right about that time is when then the first wave should land, which we would go into the third wave, which would still all be sort of your core Silverhawks. And then now that we've done with that, if there are people now that are like, okay, I really want the toy version, I really want, this other version, then we can make another one. But it's like we've delivered on, it would be remiss to go make a second Quicksilver and Steelheart before I get to Yes Man or somebody else, like, or the full team. Exactly. Like, let's get those characters out, and then we can come back and make those for the people that want them rather than people that feel like they have to get them,
Absolutely. And it seems like right now, as far as with Turtles particularly, you're at a really good steady flow in terms of production and getting the product out there to customers. Hopefully,
Wave 3
knock on wood,
coming week.
Thundercats should be right behind them as far as that flow.
Thundercats problematic. No, I mean, Turtles Wave 3 started coming into the warehouse a week and a half ago. It finished up this last week. It's going to start shipping out this week from us. So Turtles Wave 3 should be in people's hands imminently. Thundercats 3 leaves the factory in July. So next month it comes out the factory. Thundercats 2 comes out of the factory in August. Thundercats 4 comes out of the factory in October. So it's going to be
raining Thundercats for the rest of the year.
It's going to be raining Thundercats. 2 is obviously very far behind. Then we moved 3 from the original Mattel factory over to our factory. So it caught up, got ahead, but it was still behind because we had to restart the whole process. But yeah, there's, NJPW 2 and Thundercats 2 are just, those have been taking forever. Those two just have taken longer because they have to be right. Whereas, like Turtles are coming very regularly. King Diamond and Ghost both ship, I believe, in early July. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's like it's all of a sudden it's like it starts coming fast and furious. Andre's, I believe, already on the water. Like there's a lot of figures coming.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, right now, in terms of, for me at least, in my age bracket and the stuff I collect, you guys are pretty much the bread and butter of what my toy investment money wants to go to. But unfortunately, I have no product. So I know that once the stuff starts hitting the shores here, it's going to be, I think people are going to really start gravitating and kind of regretting not pulling the trigger and pre-ordering certain figures. Thankfully, you did give a second run for people that missed out on Lionel and Panthro and even Mumra Ever Living, which I know that's going to be amazing when it finally ships. But yeah, it's like, because you're hitting all these Grail licenses, right? You're doing Thundercats, you're doing now Silverhawks. Oh, did you lose me?
You froze just a little bit. You froze right
Okay.
at Thundercats, cool. Silverhawks.
Yeah, so now you've got this secretive license that you mentioned coming up next month. And it just got me thinking, because you posted that G.I. Joe post the other day, and you said the product would be ready to go. Like, when you mean ready to go, you mean like in stock, or you mean like pre-orders ready to go for the July launch?
Next month? Are we talking about the 15th? I can't talk about the 15th.
Well, you're talking about July. You had mentioned July. I don't remember the 15th. Is it the same date? Because July 15th is the G.I. Joe date that you posted on on Instagram. So
we're gonna have some exciting stuff to talk about on the 15th. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm just thinking, like, I'm scratching my head here because the thing is, you've got Hasbro's doing an amazing job with G.I. Joe classifieds, but let's be honest here. What people my age, what we want is real American hero. We want what was on TV. We don't really necessarily want these modern military, homage type of figures. We want what we had when we were kids, with super articulation, with one thinking, just like you did the MMPRs. It's like, could they do Ultimates G.I. Joe? And
I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna have to find out.
Yeah, people have been talking, because you said melt your brain. I think it was with when you talked to the guys at Fwoosh. You said it would melt people's brains. So I was just thinking, I was thinking like other things. I never thought Joe's. I thought, maybe like another 80s license, like Dungeons and Dragons, the animated series, or like some other animated show, like maybe
we've been trying to get
something else from Kenner, like Visionaries. I mean, you've been trying to go after Visionaries?
I haven't gone after Visionaries yet. We've been trying to get D&D for 3 or 4 years, and they're not really interested. D&D is doing a really huge business in D&D modern, D&D now, and they're very much focused on their present business. They're not very interested in looking backwards, to my dismay, but that doesn't mean that it's not bad for them. So they're one day, hopefully we'll get to D&D. But we've had a bunch of meetings about it, and they know we like it, but nothing's been able to go there yet.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because Iron Studios has recently did a line of D&D 110 scale statues.
That's the only thing that's been able to come out, and I don't know how they did it fast.
And you can see the demand on the secondary market. Those things are just insane, Yep. So I was just thinking, well, maybe that'll kind of give them a nudge that, hey, people want this 80s D&D stuff,
Man, the D&D presentation that I gave them is lurid in its detail of all sorts of stuff, and you know, I know they do have some stuff coming out in the future, but it's going to be mostly centered around modern D&D, and that's their
Like that 2-pack that Hasbro posted.
yeah. I mean, you know, that's the world that they're going after right now, and you know that's great for them, and it's great that they're having success. Obviously, there's other things that I'd like to do with it, but maybe I'll get to, maybe I won't. I don't know, but yeah, not that one.
It's refreshing to know that you've pursued it because
Oh man, you have no idea how long I've tried to get D&D. Not just
I can,
animated D&D, but just all sorts of stuff from D&D.
yeah, it's a big thing. And I think they're working on a movie right now, live action feature, I believe.
Everybody is, so I assume they are. You know, if you talk to any IP anywhere on the planet, they're like, oh, you know, they're in pre-production on the movie. It's like, everybody is, so I assume that they are.
Yeah. So tell me about the Thunder Tank. Like how are we moving along in production?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't really have anything to show anyone quite yet. And as soon as I get test shots, I will. I think we're expected to see test shots next month. But so far, it's moving along. All the engineering has been coming along well. Everything's sort of on schedule. It's sort of moving along just as we planned. So far, that you can't see me knock. I'll have to do it up here. There we go. You know, knock on wood. Everything's still going along according to plan and doing great.
That's awesome. And I was wondering when in terms of packaging, because something like that, which is such an expensive investment, some people may want to, you know, maybe display the tank.
Still there? I don't know. Is it your internet? Is it my internet?
Sorry about that. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. There you go. You said some people may want to display the tank.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, for people that bought the Thunder Tank, you'd probably want to display it, but then repackage it. Is that something that you've taken into consideration when it comes to, you know, how it's packaged, how it's housed in the box? Is it going to be like in a tray where you can easily repackage it and, you know, put it away in its box, or, you know, have you thought about that at all?
Snake Mountain was a fairly able to go back. You know, the top lid was a little tricky, but you know, we'll be shipping it double boxed again, making sure that nobody gets bent corners, and then yeah, I mean, it'll be able to come out and disassemble and then pop back in and go back into the box for sure. Am I glitching out on you?
Yeah, a little bit.
What part came through?
You said Snake Mountain and
then it cut out?
And the top lid.
Yeah, obviously that's a little tricky to get it all to assemble and fit back inside with all those boxes. You know, definitely with Thunder Tank, it's going to be a much more, you can get much more of what you would almost expect a traditional toy to come in, where here's all the parts and pieces and it all fits back into this thing and then goes inside the box. I think it'll be much easier to put back all the parts and put it away. It won't be the same sort of like once you assemble it, there's no unassembling it.
Oh, okay. I see. So basically you can repackage it as long as you never assemble it, basically.
No.
So the box is something, I guess, for people that want to keep.
No, I was making a joke about how like the top.
Oh, you could put it back in?
Yeah, you'll be able to put it back in on Thunder Tank, but on Snake Mountain, once you put that top door in, it's a real pain in the butt to take it out.
Oh, yeah, locks in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Once that locks in
just
place,
like with Castle Grayskull. I remember with Castle Grayskull, when you put the handle piece on it, that's it. Like it was impossible to take that handle piece off.
Yeah. Wondering which Wi-Fi. Is it my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi that's giving us pause?
Yeah, I don't know. Why this is good. I have everybody, like nobody's streaming in my house or nothing.
Yeah.
It's weird. So yeah. So what I was mentioning with the Thunder Tank, you said that its production is going smooth, and you'll
Yep.
have something more concrete to show fans pretty soon. That's
Yep.
exciting.
Yep.
In terms of Thundercats, I know that Wave 5 is already planned, and I think you guys are already working on Wave 6 and 7 as we speak. When are you planning on releasing pre-orders for Wave 5? Would that be once Wave 3 is in hand, or are you going to wait for Wave 2?
Yeah, I mean, Wave 3 and Wave 2 are literally going to be weeks apart. So I need to deliver Waves 2 and 3. What's that? Did I glitch out?
Hold on. You hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say, it's like I need to deliver Wave 2 and Wave 3 before I make Wave 5 of it.
I think crazy.
Yeah. I'm on Wi-Fi here. I'm on the unfiltered adult Wi-Fi versus the separate Wi-Fi we have for the children. So should be okay.
Okay. Yeah, I have nobody on the internet, and I do see the Wi-Fi signal it keeps fluctuating. Do you see that on the screen? The little Wi-Fi signal?
No.
Like right here on the top? Okay, I guess it's just me on my end. But yeah, so you said we're gonna wait till Wave 2 is in hand as well?
I mean,
to put up pre-orders for Wave 5?
Wave 2 and Wave 3 are going to come like 2 or 3 weeks apart. I mean, they're going to be right around the same time. So once those start getting into people's hands, then
probably a month apart.
No, 2 or 3 weeks apart, probably. But I'm not going to.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not going to ask people to buy Wave 5 until I deliver some more product to them. So I've got to get 2 and 3 in people's hands, and then 5. I mean, 5's done. It's finished. It's just waiting for 2 and 3 to arrive.
Yeah, that's really exciting, man. And I mean, with Ultimates, like I mentioned before, it's just you're going after my heart with all the properties that you're producing toys for, and now with Siverhawks, of course. I know the minute you announced the pre-order for Siverhawks, people were like, Tiger Sharks. When are you making Tiger Sharks? And it's funny because Tiger Sharks is so much more of an obscure and smaller and less known property, but it's still within that Rankin Bass family of those anamorphic, characters. So, that's something that I'm pretty sure you've already considered for maybe sometime in the future. I'm sure once Siverhawks is pretty much, we got the core teams out of the way. Because like you said, how many toys can you deliver on a yearly basis?
Right.
And, I had a friend that I was talking to the other day, and it's just like, it seems like ever since COVID, we have just been getting tsunami of collectibles coming from all the companies versus in previous years where things were a little more spread out. And I think there was less product being sold throughout the year. So I really don't know how collectors are catching up and being able to buy all this stuff because, you have even niche collectors.
Even from us, I mean, you're getting more opportunity. That said, usually, it's very different. Obviously, today Kyle announced Goldar at PowerCon or Power MorphCon. So generally speaking, that Power Rangers collector is not always the same guy that might be your Thundercats collector or your Turtles collector. So while we are adding more lines, at least for us, I'm trying to make sure that, different collectors are buying different things and then they get into their cadence. But I'm not trying to be like, okay, here's many things that are exactly the same. Obviously Thundercats and Siverhawks line up, but I'm not going to put a Thundercats pre-order in the same month as a Silverhawks pre-order. That would be asking too much of that collector. So we're definitely trying to space those out and give people time to get into everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it
They're
is pretty
expensive
overwhelming.
toys. They're expensive
Yeah.
toys.
Especially that Monster, $85. I think that's the most expensive Ultimate you've ever made.
And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on that because making him in the true scale was going to cause him to be exorbitantly expensive. And we scaled him down. This is okay. What does it looks like if he's more like an inch and a half taller? Well, then it doesn't look right. And, but then it'll be more affordable because it's already expensive. 55 is a lot already before we even get into this. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally it was just sort of like, everybody was coming back. Like, if we're going there and it's going to be this price already, like, make it all the way. Don't cheap out on me. Don't try to save $10 or $15, $20 on the retail price by only making him a little bit taller versus the real size. And so, I was very, very nervous about the backlash of what would be, the pricing on Monstar. Luckily, I think most everybody's looked at it and said, okay, do you see the scale of this thing? Like, it's massive. And it's not just massive in height, like the girth and width of that figure as it scales up is preposterous.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that's tricky, it tricks the when you see these digital renders of figures in package and you see Monstar side by side with Steelheart and Quicksilver, people are immediately getting confused and like, but wait a minute, how did they fit in the same box?
It's the same proportion of box. It's just a gigantic box.
Exactly. It's the same art, same style art on the box, but the box is obviously dimensionally going to be a lot bigger to house that monster.
Yes.
And it's not like he comes with his legs removed or whatever, so he can fit in a smaller box.
No. It's going to be a stupid big box.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine, because I know Ever Living Mumra, and I don't know if I had asked you this before, but is he going to come in the package like with his arms open with the cape out, or did you put him with arms down and then the cape will just be folded in the back?
I thought the final sample, his arms were out.
Okay, cool.
But same thing. It's like, here's a regular Ultimates box, and then there's Mumra's box, which is much bigger. Like if you got the Ren and Stimpy, I don't know if you got the Ren or Stimpy.
No, I missed out on those. I know they're mammoth.
The boxes were preposterous how big they were, and just because, they're big figures and they're big characters and there's a lot of, physicality to them.
Right.
Yeah. So no, it's going to be a giant box. I assume that when we set those out in sets, it'll be like Monstar's facing this way in the box, and then the other three guys are facing this way. And that's how we'll get our cube or smallest shipping dimension.
Wow, yeah, it makes sense, because he's a beast. And I really honestly don't see how people are just gonna get everybody else and not buy Monstar, because he's like an absolute must-have. Did you ever consider kind of like how you did with Pumra, did you ever consider giving Monstar his like more lion-esque feral?
That's the non-armored Monstar. That's the non-armored Monstar. Maybe we'll see him later.
That's a whole other figure.
That's a whole nother.
That's just like talking about
everything. Everything's different, top to bottom on that figure. That's a whole nother character.
Absolutely.
Almost. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
But the armored one.
And that's the thing, that back then we didn't get that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to look amazing, because back then all we had was the armored Monstar with that little flip head that would expose the that feral Monstar head. But that's going to be amazing. That I'm dying to see what the creative team is going to do with sculpt and design on that version of Monstar, because I love the armor. It's very like metal kind of, where you think rock instantly, because you get like the spikes and shine, and he just screams metal. But the feral one kind of brings me more into like he's more like a demon, almost kind of could be from Thundercats lore. So
Yeah.
it's just very different feels that you get from those two different looks, you know?
Yeah, they're radically different body sculpt, everything. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And so yeah, as far as I guess with Silverhawks, like you said, once you have some better, looking prototypes, you're definitely going to give us some looks on
Definitely.
those, like more in hand,
Yeah,
so people can see. Because I think once people see Quicksilver standing next to Monstar on your desk, they're going to be like, "Oh my god, okay."
oh yeah. Like, even the ones that are on my desk, he dwarfs him, and he's still an inch shorter than the final one. So it'd be like I'd have to
Wow.
put an inch underneath him and lift him up even higher, and it's just like, no, this is
Yeah.
me. And it's huge. It's huge.
It's a
It's
monster.
huge right in the middle.
So do you think that, once you've got like 3 or 4 waves in with the Silverhawks, do you think that there's possibilities of a vehicle getting produced?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of this is sort of one step at a time. We did Snake Mountain. We got Snake Mountain now. Thunder Tank's in process now. I need to sort of get Thunder Tank in front of people, and then I can sort of move into what are the next vehicles and what are the places we can go after that. As long as there's people that are interested in it, I'd love to make it. There's going to be a reality at some point if we get too many of these where it's like, okay, I can't fit any more 17-foot vehicles in my house. But
yeah,
but
there's only so much space.
but at the same time, it's not always the same guy buying the same vehicle. The Thunder Tank is amazing, and like I said, I need to get that one out, have people have more confidence about the next one, and then what's after that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to getting them. It sounds wrong, but like I'd love to get there, but I need to deliver Silverhawks first. I need to deliver a Thunder Tank first, and then I can start having conversations about giant spaceships.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can imagine a Skyrunner. That would just be amazing. Because if you think about the main ship, that is preposterous. That's something that I don't think, the way that you have produced stuff like the Thunder Tank, where you could actually fit the entire team and Thundrillium in the tank. If you were to make the main vehicle, it would just be insane. I mean, I don't think it would be realistically possible to make.
We'd have to figure, but that's the fun of figuring it all out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One at a time. I got to finish, deliver, then I can really move on. But
I heard you mention something about a Thundercats exclusive coming down the pike later this year. Is that going to be for like an online event type thing, or is it going to be like a retailer drop?
Excuse me. It is a retailer drop for later this year.
Okay.
But
cool.
I think that instead of doing a drop where there's a fixed amount, I think they're going to do it as a drop as an open pre-order.
Okay. So it's not going to be like limited numbers. It's going to be based on the amount of orders.
Yeah. I in the past we had
like made to order.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. It most likely will be made to order. Yes, because that way everybody gets a chance. I don't like the idea of it just selling out in 30 minutes and then some guy that's bought the whole line can't get that. Then he's got to pay 3 times retail on eBay. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, nobody likes that, especially like I was talking about the G.I. Joe classifieds, that whole Target fiasco. It's been insane, and it looks like they finally got it nailed down where the stuff is available again. They got more product out, and now it's easier to find in the stores. Have you ever considered, just like you're doing with Reaction at Target and stuff like that, have you considered possibly taking Ultimates to retail at some point?
There's not enough. This begets a very large conversation about how the worlds of Target work. Like, even if you look at us not even in the toy section, in the collector section in the back, for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they're still
It's like the
only
Misfits
buying,
tool.
yeah, they're only buying the turtles. Like they're not even, at least previous seasons, they weren't even willing to buy Splinter or Casey Jones. Like if you really go into the business of mass retail, and this may take a second, like each peg is a dollar sign. So a peg, if you're talking about a peg, generally they want the peg to turn a figure a week. So if you put if it's a $20 figure on there, so let's say, reaction is 18, but for easy math, we'll say it's 20. So that's $20 a week that peg is expected to generate. 52 weeks a year, that means it generates at least $1,040, but for easy math, $1,000. In reality, it's actually higher because of Christmas and everything else. But it's $1,000. Well, now they have 2,000 stores. So now that peg is expected to generate $2 million a year. So they're not going to put anything on a peg that they don't think can sell volume. So it's not a matter of like, oh, hey, we're going to allow Target to buy this from us. It's more just the opposite. Like Target's not interested in the thing that, like I'm going to use Thundercats as an example. They can't move enough Thundercats to make it worth their time for that peg. And then conversely, for all your billion-dollar toy company, your Hasbros, your Mattels, Spin Master, Jazzwares, all those companies, every one of those pegs is $2 million. And if you're talking about the boys' toy aisle, it's expected to move twice as fast. So that's $4 million. So like a stripe of, vertical stripe of like 3 or 4 pegs. Okay, well, that one vertical stripe, like that's $16 million in the boys' toy aisle. That's how you get to be $1 billion toy company, is you control as many of that. So the competition for each one of those spots is massive. And that's Target, right? If I'm saying that stripe is 16 million at Target, well, there's 4,000. There's twice as many Walmarts. So now it's 32 million. Like,
wow.
No one's going to easily give you a peg. And no one's going to want to give up a peg. And if you're going to fit on a peg, traditionally, we're trying to do some different things right now, but traditionally, like, you have to be able to supply and fill in a certain way. We're definitely trying to do some different stuff on the back wall of Target that will be very interesting. But getting in the toy aisle, I think, is a very different beast than I think most people think it is. They're like, oh, if they put this on the shelf, it would totally sell. And it might once, but it can't sell just once. It only gets reset twice a year. Like, it has to sell.
Be continuous.
You've got to sell lots of them. Like, so when you go in there and you're like, man, they've got 17 Darth Vaders on the peg. It's like, yes, they have 17 Darth Vaders in a peg, but in a week, they're going to have 12 Darth Vaders in a peg. And a week after that, there's going to be 7 Darth Vaders on a peg. And a week after that, there's going to be no Darth Vaders on a peg. Because
what about an approach like, I was thinking of an approach like, how Diamond Select in the past, they've done like the deluxe offering of a figure and then the more streamlined offering of a figure for a lesser price. So is that something that you think would work maybe? Like if you could do an Ultimates, like a watered down Ultimates with just like less parts?
We've talked about some stuff like that. It comes down to a couple factors. The biggest of which is, regardless of all of the machinations of it, is can that character sell enough to be worthy of the space on the floor? And that's why, you don't see really niche licenses, because they can't move the volume that they expect. So that's the first thing. Like, I don't think if we did a takedown of Lion-O, for example, I don't know that you could sell enough Lion-Os to literally justify it. I mean, I think within that, there's so many people that like Thundercats, but it's a very defined quantity. If I make 10 more than the amount of people looking for it, no price will matter. There's simply not a customer to buy it anymore. And that's sort of the interesting part of where a lot of the companies like ourselves or NECA, Mezco, all these live in now, which is this in-between stage where manufacturing's gotten to a point where we can make smaller runs and we can make these more unique toys that wouldn't have gotten made 20 years ago. And we can get them out to an audience that cares about them without having to have it sit at a Target or Walmart shelves. Now, obviously the caveat there is that Toys R Us was that sort of in-between place. Toys R Us, I think, had at its height like 500 doors. So, it's a much, much smaller fraction, but they were able to carry, because the whole store was toys, they could carry so much more. Where now, if you've got one aisle of boys' action figures and one aisle that's kind of halfway action figures and video game stuff, like, there's only so many pegs available. And the competition for those pegs is fierce. So getting a peg,
it makes sense. And I guess, there's still Toys R Us in Canada, which I'm surprised
and in Japan.
It's still around. But I wonder if there's ever going to be, a full toy brick and mortar store again in the future. That would be
there should be
great, because I think so too. Even if it's something smaller like a KB, something that just focuses on toys.
I think it's just the idea of the grand version of that, what were they, 20,000, 40,000 square foot, like department store of toys, I think is trickier. And I think that you have to have stuff that is unique, and there's a reason for people to get there and a reason for people to bring their kids there. And I think that was sort of one of the undoings, if you will, in a lot of ways with Toys R Us it was the same stuff you could get at Target and Walmart. So if it's just the same stuff I can get at the toy aisle in Target and Walmart, I don't need to go to Toys R Us. Now, on the collector side, there was obviously stuff that wasn't. But if you're talking about, regular kid stuff, I mean, you could walk into a Toys R Us and get, like Power Wheels or whatever they were, those driving the little cars for kids. And you could get stuff like that was different. You couldn't find that elsewhere, but you can get a Barbie at Walmart. You can get Star Wars figures at Walmart. You can get all this other stuff at Walmart. So I think what they didn't do is that they never spent enough time to develop product that they uniquely had, and made it a point of difference. Like Toys R Us should have been the place where anytime there was a kid's birthday, you logged in and signed on to a registry, no different than a wedding registry, and bought toys for your kids for their birthday party or whatever. It always boggled my mind that Toys R Us didn't have gift wrapping. Like 1 out of every 3 sales in this place is a gift. If you had gift wrapping in here, it would be a no-brainer. I go there, pick out a toy, they wrap it up, I take it to the party, I give it to my cousin for his birthday, give it to my niece, take it for Christmas. Like, should have been a no-brainer. Did any of that come through? I see you.
Yeah, the gift wrapping, and the birthday, all that came through.
Yeah, it's just,
prior to that.
I think they really just tried to turn Toys R Us into a department store, which it wasn't.
You hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. I saw you blink, so I'm like, okay, he's not frozen.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, usually what I've been doing is I've been recording. I work at a school, and I've been doing my recordings there. So it's more like a dedicated fiber connection. I think going forward, I'm going to have to do that. But because it was a Saturday, I recorded from my home. So I apologize for all the glitching.
It doesn't bother
definitely,
me. If you want to redo it someday, we can also redo it too if you want.
Yeah, I'll review it and see the quality. And then based on that, I'll let you know. and maybe we can reschedule, and I'll do it. I'll either get an Ethernet connection going, so I have a more dedicated connection, because right now I'm doing Wi-Fi, and I've never had this kind of problem, because last time we recorded, I recorded on my iPad with Wi-Fi, and we didn't have any of this glitching. It was an audio issue because I wasn't wearing earbuds, but
Yeah.
we didn't have connection issues. So I'm not really sure what might have happened. But I'll definitely, I'll let you know. What I wanted to tell you also, let me just end the broadcast here. Let me see. Hold on a second. I'll just edit this later. Well, Brian, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been really exciting, to get these updates on all the product that we're looking forward to in regards to, of course, the Siverhawks. Really looking forward to seeing more tangible product in hand as soon as you get those prototypes painted and stuff like that. And absolutely just can't wait for these Thundercats to finally arrive. I think once they arrive, it's just going to be like so many people just, wow, I should have pre-ordered. I should have pre-ordered. Of course, we're getting, Lion-O and Panthro and all that. But for people who didn't pre-order their Monkeans, their Snowmans, all that, there's going to be a lot of regret. And, it's just, I'm just glad that a very cold night. but yeah, it's really awesome. And can't wait to see what this July 15 thing holds in store for collectors. That's going to be a really exciting time. I'm definitely going to be checking your social feeds that day.
Yeah.
Is there going to be some sort of like event, or are you just going to post something?
We'll let you know. We'll let you know.
Keep us posted. All right. So thanks so much, Brian. Again, it was great talking to you. You have a great day. Okay.
Thanks as always.
Thanks.